Awesome. Hi there. Thank you so much for sticking around. There was a little part of me that was like, is everyone going to leave because they're scared to talk about psychology? The stigma is that strong sometimes. And that is why our mission with Well Connected Now is to rebrand mental health and make trustworthy support more accessible. Now, to give you a little bit more background on me, all good? Okay. So to give you a little more background on me, I used to be a product marketing manager at Microsoft. And my goal was to shift tech enthusiasts' brand perception of Microsoft's consumer apps and services. So I would go around to tech meetups around the world and demo OneDrive and Bing and Outlook.com and Internet Explorer in that picture, and then try and make it look cool to people. And that's actually at a meetup where I met Greg Smith. I don't know if there's people in the room that know him, yeah. And so we just started chit-chatting for a while, and then he told me about this great group that he's a part of that sounded like it had some similar missions that WCN does. And so to give you a little more context on how I got involved in this, so I studied psychology and science, technology, and society at Stanford. I really wanted to be a therapist, and then I became president of my first organization and realized that there was an opportunity for me to potentially make a larger and more direct impact if I went into business rather than one-on-one counseling. So I started a marketing internship at a mobile payment startup called Bling Nation, which was partnered with PayPal, and that's when I really fell in love with marketing. I grew up in San Francisco, and I wanted to see what else was out there. I also wanted to understand what office politics were, because apparently that's why all my teammates at Bling had left corporate life and never looked back. But none of them could actually explain to me what office politics meant. They said I needed to realize it for myself, experience it. And wow, did I experience it. And too many of my friends, my coworkers, my mentees were struggling unnecessarily because of underwhelming roles, unsupportive managers, or overextended job searches that they felt too long for them. These frustrations started spiraling into depression and anxiety. And I know that depression and anxiety is extremely treatable. I mean, to the point that if you see a cognitive behavioral therapist, there's an 80% effectiveness rate at your symptoms improving within 10 sessions. And yet 70% of the 25 million people struggling with depression and anxiety aren't seeking treatment. Which for me just doesn't really make much sense. It's like, oh, here's your problem. Oh, there's specialists that are trained in resolving this for you and turning it around. And I realized that the reason that most people, or not enough people, know how to recognize their depression and anxiety and reach out to get help is because therapists think it's unethical to market their services. Actually, only 18% of therapists will market directly to consumers. So what do marketers do? They make things more appealing. They tell you the benefits. They make it easier for your customer journey to end up in a closed sale, right? So if there's no one doing this for therapists, then of course 70% of the people struggling don't realize that therapy can help them. So that's part of the gap that we're trying to fill, and that I tried to fill by putting on panels for Microsoft Advertising's women's group, or for coaching Microsoft's Academy of College Hires. But it really didn't feel like enough. And last year, on November 1st, 2014, I left to start Well Connected Now. Since then, we've personally matched over 175 professionals with mentors, coaches, and therapists We've seen over 4,000 visits to our website, and we just surpassed over $1,000 in revenue. Now, a huge part of our conversations are not necessarily, matching clients to therapists, but one of our big goals here is to help people before it spirals to that point, right? And so the people that are looking for mentors, the people that are looking for coaches, are the people that are dissatisfied in their roles and looking for some help to get out of there. So now I'm gonna run through essentially the main takeaways from the conversations that I've had with our clients, with past mentors of mine and mentees that I've tried to pass those messages on to. So first I'll run through the real ups and downs of job searching. I'll offer some networking tips that you can take or leave, as well as some interviewing advice. And then I'd also like to leave some time for an open mic where people can share things that maybe have not yet been addressed otherwise. I want us to be able to have that discussion about the tougher side of job searching. So, one of the first things that I've realized is that the job search is really 80% mental and 20% action. And I think that recognizing that can help more people allow themselves to be concerned about what their next role is going to be. Now, there is much more to the job search than just writing your applications or cleaning up your resume or sending out those cover letters or putting yourself out there. A lot of it is also considering how you're going to present yourself, how you're going to play this game that is by nature one that is all about performing and then having that performance assessed. Of course, we're going to be concerned about how we're going to be perceived. We're going to be concerned on how they're going to judge us. Because to be fair, that is what this is, right? You're sending out your resume, someone's appraising it. And so what this means is that this is a vulnerable time for us, and this also means that this will trigger our insecurities. Now, for each person, that will be different because all of us have different things we're concerned about. Now, I've had clients be concerned about how high-pitched their tone is. They get extremely insecure on phone interviews. To if they struggle with their body image, they're worried about how they're going to look. If they have trouble making friends, they're worried about whether they'll belong. Maybe they're worried about whether they'll think they're stupid, whether they'll think that their background isn't strong enough. And I've seen this come up also when I've interviewed candidates, is that you'll see as the person is going over their background, kind of what are the vulnerable areas for them. And I think knowing that that's going to come up can help you address it better. The other part is, it's difficult when people always complain about how hard it is to job search when you're working. But it's also incredibly hard to job search when you're not working. Because let's extend that 80%, 20% ratio to hours of the day. So if you're spending, let's say, 20 hours a week, if you're working full-time, and let's be honest, it's at least a part-time job, right? There's enough to it. So 80% of 20 hours, right, 16 hours of concerns and kind of, chewing over what these opportunities might mean for you or preparing for the interviews. But if you're working on this full-time, so 80% of 40 hours is 32 hours. Now, think about what that does for your psyche. If you're spending 16 hours of the week and or 32 hours of the week concerned about this. And that's difficult. And what makes it even more difficult is that sometimes our friends and loved ones aren't very helpful when it comes to this. Because when we do tell them, hey, this is hard, like I'm really struggling and feeling discouraged, then they start, do they start cheerleading you on? Sometimes do they tell you, you can do it, but you're making progress, or they tell you, just try a little harder, just keep going. And although, of course, they mean well, what you learn in peer counseling is that you never want to jump to solutions before first acknowledging what the challenges actually are. And if you're telling someone, this is difficult for me, and then they're just saying, well, you can make it better, what would be more helpful is if they said, this is difficult, this sucks. And I want to take a moment to tell all of you that yes, this does suck. And this is frustrating, and these are unfortunate circumstances. And I hope they get better. And you can do it.
What if your loved one is very negative?
What is what?
What if your loved one is extremely negative? Meaning to say, not giving you even 1 angstrom of encouragement.
Are they discouraging you?
Yeah.
That's not fair.
But I'm still normal.
Let's talk after this. Yeah, that's not right. Maybe we can spend some time workshopping that in our open mic. Yeah. That's not helpful for the people who do that. If you have loved ones that do that, you can teach them, I want you to be my supporter and my cheerleader. So to continue with that, I think it's important to set realistic expectations for yourself. I would say that the majority of the people that I talk to that start job searching expect that they will find their job within a month at the latest. And I always need to kind of try and help them measure their expectations, because for the people that I know that have found jobs, it doesn't matter how experienced or how incredible they've been, it's taken them on average 6 to 12 months. And that's if they were not working, and that's if they were working, and while they were looking. So what I share that because I know that there are people, I know that we all want to be the exception to the rule, and we all want to, and we all know those people that were able to find roles faster than that. But I hope that by setting more realistic expectations around how long this job search takes will give you more freedom to not beat yourself up for it taking the normal amount of time. So if you've been searching for less than 6 to 12 months and you haven't found a role yet, you're not doing anything wrong. That's how long it takes. And not only is that how long it takes, it's also, I mean, let's say you're still, not there yet. It's still, I know that people want to find their job fast. Let's look at it from the employer's perspective. So they're recruiting for a reason, right? Like that job listing made it up there because that team is overloaded. They're in fact so overloaded that they now have an opening for someone to have 40 hours a week's worth of projects to do. Now think about, a time where you worked on a team that was understaffed, or you were managing a team that was understaffed. How long did it take to get that head count?
Forever.
Yeah. And so for that listing to be up there, they desperately need help because they're so busy. And unfortunately, what that also means is that if we're going to be realistic, there's no way that although of course hiring a person will solve their problems of being overloaded, there's no way that the interview or anything related to recruiting or interviewing will be prioritized above the highest impact action items for the business, which means that anything tied to interviews will always be deprioritized, which means that by nature of them hiring, this is going to be a slow process. So I'll reiterate again that if it takes 6 to 12 months, you're not doing anything wrong. That's just how long it often takes. Now, job searching, as we all know, isn't always fun. And a lot of that, I've realized, comes with guilt over, for me, and for a lot of my friends, it was this kind of feeling like you're not doing enough. And maybe also realizing that it's much more fun to browse than it is to actually apply. And this is where I'd like to ask, does anyone in this room have more than 10 tabs open right now with jobs that they want to apply to? So there's a great Chrome extension called OneTab, which if you download, it'll help you like bookmark all of those in one. It's great. But I realized that that is something that could be structured in a way that can be more productive for you and also give you a part of the job search that you can actually look forward to. So I picked this up in a blog, and this is the way that I would structure my job search. On Tuesdays, I would block out time to look for jobs. And on Thursdays, I would block out time to apply for jobs. So on Tuesdays was when I had 20 tabs open, and I would build out a spreadsheet where I would write the company name, the company role, and then a link to that job posting. And then on Thursday, when I would come in to get started, I would just open up that spreadsheet and then look through those roles again, and then go after the ones that still seemed interesting to me, and that I would actually want to take the time to customize a letter for. So what this allowed is that if you browse if that time on Tuesdays became a lot more enjoyable, and that time on Thursdays became a lot more productive. Another tab that I added onto the spreadsheet and was a list of my favorite brands and companies. And so my first role at Microsoft was underwhelming. My first manager was very unsupportive. And so in my, I spent a year job searching, and I told myself that I was never going to put myself in that type of hurt. I will do my best to not put myself in a situation like that again, that I was going to do the right due diligence, and I was going to find a job where I can do what I love. And so with that, I started thinking about, well, what companies do I love? What companies would I love to work for? And I'm still adding on to this. And so in this spreadsheet, I wrote the name of the company, and I had a link to their jobs page. And so then every now and then, when I go on the spreadsheet, I can just track the jobs postings on those specific companies and be more targeted about, looking out for the teams where I would love to end up in. Now, going back to that, 80% time spent feeling a bit angsty, it's important to give yourself room to still have fun and have hobbies. I know that it feels like you want to spend every minute in being productive. What can oftentimes make you feel more productive and more confident is if you actually find a way to have fun. have fun in the way before you were job searching. Now this is easier to say than to do, so, and I'm sure it's something you've heard before, so I'll move on from that. The next part is...
Question. So, going back to that previous slide,
Mm-hmm.
is that what you mean when you say find your mojo?
Your mojo. Yeah.
Something that's not work related?
Yeah.
So in short, you've got to have a very, very good hobby.
Yeah, and something that you feel like you're good at
Yeah.
in there.
If your hobby somehow coincide with your work, that would be great.
It would be better if it wasn't.
Really fine.
Yeah, so that it could still be fun for you. It's like I used to read Psychology Today for fun when I was doing marketing at Microsoft. And now when I read Psychology Today, I'm more, I feel like I need to tweet every article. Like, it's, you want something like improv, something like running, like something that, like sports, because those are the things that will balance out. It's like you want to have something that you can win in during the week, regardless of what is going on with your job search.
What are the criteria, some of the criteria, can you give us an example of what you would use when you build your target company? Because from the outside, a lot of the companies here look really great for us, but I know people who work there who quit because there's no work-life balance and it's not so good from the inside.
Mm-hmm.
So what are some of the criteria you use?
I'm really glad you asked that because that is my last slide, is talking about defining our criteria. Yeah, I think it's, and I can share with you what mine was. So the next part that I want to mention, and that's, I'm sure that a lot of you, once you're done job searching, you probably don't want to have anything to do with it for a long while. And so I just wanted to urge you to maybe reconsider that. And once you find your role, to keep your job alerts and just check on them every now and then. We had a director at Microsoft that recommended that we all that we should always be searching, and that he goes and interviews at least once a year, even if he's not really interested in leaving, but that is essentially a forcing function for him to keep his interview skills fresh and his resume up to date. So then that way, if anything happens, it's not like I haven't interviewed for 5 years, like my resume, I don't even know what to add on to it anymore. It's also a great way to look at those job postings to remind yourself that there are always other options out there. Like when I have a shitty day, I go and look at my jobs alerts. And sometimes it actually cheers me up because I'm like, what I'm doing I actually like more than anything listed here. But other times, I see things that, I know what my friends are looking for, right? And I know what our clients are looking for. And so as I'm looking at these job alerts, I see roles that would be great for those people. And so I'll just quickly forward them along. And that, it's surprising how many people have actually landed roles that sent over that way. And even though you've done barely anything, right? But you helped someone that you care about land a dream job, right? Like they passively got to receive something that is personally matched for them based on what they're looking for. Now, things like that are a great way to keep in touch, and they're also a great way to network. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a sec. There are also, these job postings are, for anyone that kind of geeks out about company strategy, it is a really interesting way to see what's coming up for companies. So, for example, if you look on Amazon's jobs board, it's like you can see the types of initiatives that are coming out that they're not necessarily publishing in the news, but they're definitely recruiting for. So it's a cool way to kind of find out stuff that that you might not have been privy to otherwise. But going back to the networking part, and so raise your hand if networking is part of the strategy that you're using for your job search. Okay, great. So are you guys going to meetups or events?
Yep.
Yeah, that's okay, cool. So something that I think is unfortunate about networking is that it has pretty negative connotations. I think in a lot of ways it sounds like a dirty word because it makes me think of people that aren't genuine, that are really kind of overly strategic, and that they are looking at it as essentially a stepping stone to what they want, or a tit for tat kind of thing. And I think that those negative connotations are what oftentimes scare people off about networking, is because they don't want to do those things. They want to be able to be authentic. And what I wish is that more people knew that the best type of networking is really just like making new friends. My favorite, one of my mantras, I would say, is make friends, not contacts. And what this means is that when you're at these events, so what would a networker do at one of these events, right? Maybe they'll look at the guest list and see which of these people are most important, or relevant to what they're looking for. And then they'll come to the event and then find those people, come up, give them their elevator pitch, hand their business, do the business card exchange, and then move on to make sure they reach everyone. Now, maybe that's a little extreme or not. There's some elements of that can be really effective if they're done well. But those people also, I find, get a little stressed when the conversation gets a little long. I don't know if you've seen that. You're talking to someone and you just know their eyes are like in that picture. You see some people who are just looking around the room, or just kind of waiting to move on to the next person. Now, I really encourage you to reconsider the way that you approach networking at those events and look at it as a goal to have more quality conversations rather than more of them, right? It's more about the quality of the conversation than the quantity of them. Because after the event, what'll happen is that you have a stack of business cards, and you're going to reach back out to the person who you managed to have a comfortable, meaningful, relaxed conversation with, by the bar. That's the person you're going to want to follow up with and catch up with and kind of check in and maybe grab coffee with, versus the person that did a drive-by with a 30-second pitch in their card. And so if you find yourself at an event where you've only talked to maybe one or two people, but it was great conversation, that's great. I've had that so many times, and I'm still keeping in touch with those people. And it's been years. That is real networking, I would say. But of course, you also don't really want to be, the clinger, right? You don't want to just be standing, you found one person, you're like, all right, we're gonna have a really quality conversation. So I found that it makes it easier if I have some kind of polite one-liners to move on, to be able to, say, hey, it was really nice talking to you, I'm gonna go do this now, but not be rude. And so what I found is that if I say that I need to go somewhere else, I'm gonna go get a drink, I'm gonna go to the restroom, I'm gonna go check out the other room, I'm gonna